Houston Station, we are ready for the event.
Can you make your dreams and desires become reality? Can you manifest?
To add me to the stream, hello, and I am going to add the lovely Michelle Welch. Hello.
Hi.
I've been talking for a few minutes beforehand, as we do, and I'll just say hello to everybody who's on now. Michelle Welch is a lovely friend who we met, I don't know if it was 2017 or 2018 at Reader's Studio. I'm a little bit fuzzy on the year that we actually met, but we did actually meet quite briefly as well at Reader's Studio. It was really short migraine type meet.
You know, it's really interesting how I think that's an interesting thing, that our story, how quickly somebody can connect, and you realize that I don't even know if it's like a past life connection or it's just one of those instant connections where you just really know that you're somebody's person, you know, that you're connected to somebody in some way. And yeah, I don't remember what year it was either, but we both have experienced migraines, and I just saw you, and I could tell you were struggling, and we've just been friends since. And It wasn't even that long. And I just want everybody to know that when we were there, I truly, I was just like this person who, like I didn't know who anybody was or anything like that. Afterwards, everybody's like, "Do you know who she is?"
Stop it.
They're like, "She's like, and I was like, well, I just was worried that she had a migraine, So, but it's just amazing how such a short meeting can kind of change the course of your life. And we've been friends ever since.
Yeah. And I have your bio here, which I'm going to read. We're actually very lucky that Michelle comes on with us, because she was on with Jenny McCarthy not long ago. So I am truly honored that you would join me. I'm going to put my old lady glasses on and read. Michelle is the founder and owner of Soultopia. If you don't know Soultopia, have a look, Google it. It comes up straight away. A metaphysical store in Dallas, Texas. Although an attorney, she is passionate about her calling to assist others in gaining clarity and self-empowerment, which led her to pursue her soul purpose in intuitive and healing sessions. Michelle receives clear messages for you and has a direct yet compassionate form of delivery, which I can absolutely attest to. And what's even more amazing is the magic of connection. You are the author of The Magic of Connection. And if you don't know about this book already, it can be pre-ordered on Amazon. I will put the links in below. And it is a book for me personally that is truly needed. And the reason for that is we actually have a lot of similarities in spiritual beliefs. We may use different terms from time to time, but our baseline spiritual belief is similar. And the reason the book is important is because it teaches you to own your own energies and actually work with your own energies. And rather than cutting cords, which is something that is a buzzword these days, cut your cords, get them out. And rather than doing that, teaching you to be the most active spiritual warrior that you could possibly be. So I am super excited about the book. I've got it on pre-order.
Thank you.
So that's something that everybody has to do. And today we're going to talk about the magic of connection, of course, but also the how that can then help you in your life or journey on manifestation. And the first thing I wanted to clear up with you is actually what you call the operating level at which we speak with spirit. Some people call it their higher self. There's lots of different words for it. I call it super conscious, that I'm operating at, or a different quantum realm level. What would you use for that term?
So I would say for me, probably higher self than source. But I would say for most people, whatever you want to call it, whatever your term is what you should use. Because like you said earlier, Toni, you and I say many of the same things. We say it in this, but we're saying it using just different terms. So when you're saying super conscious, I mean, I read something that you had written the other day for the conference that's coming up, your great conference that we're all so excited about, and the manifestation conference, and the speech that you're giving. And I was like, oh, wow, I bet some of the things we say are going to overlap because, but you're saying it in a much, I think you're putting it in a much more academic way.
But that's because it fits me.
I think
I am more comfortable with academic terms than the more spiritual terms. I sometimes personally struggle with the more spiritual terms.
And I think I just put them in like, maybe basic terms. I don't know if mine are spiritual.
I must say in the book, it actually, because yes, I have seen the book, but it does have the quantum physics side of life as a foundation for that. So we're not talking a book that is woo-woo and with no foundation to that. You do walk through the different laws, for example.
Yeah.
And so you do actually use terms that are quite academic. And with your attorney past, there must be some form of that needs some kind of validation for you.
Well, exactly, because it's interesting. My daughter's in law school right now, and she was writing for one of her professors, and she was using terms like, not that these are, just as an example, she was using like heretofore and thereafter, heretofore and things like that. And they said, lose those words. We want to speak more in layman's terms. And she's like, but you didn't grow up in my house. This is how we talk. And even though I'm very East Texas and all that, but in doubt, she was in a 2-attorney household, her parents, and she's like, that's how I talk. I say heretofore and wherefore and hereinafter and all that. And they're like, well, not anymore. You don't, because we were going to bring that down and we're going to talk in layman's terms. And so in the book, I just tried to say things in a way that it would be palatable to anyone who would just pick up the book.
I think it's also palatable to both sides.
Yeah.
So it's like I say, it's not completely woo-woo that would maybe feel somebody who is with when it comes to spirituality, who is a little bit triggered by some of the terminology therein, that you actually do use terms that aren't both sides of the cake, if you like, both sides of the coin.
Yeah, I try to do that. And when you ask that about what terms I use, even when people talk about spirit guides, I always try to say, for me, where I've come to now, and I'm not saying everybody has to think this, but I kind of think is like, everybody's always like, well, who are my spirit guides? How do I get in touch with spirit guides? Or at least at our store, they're always asking that. And that's okay. But I always try to say that word guide is kind of important, because I think of them as kind of like bumper pads. They're kind of, I don't mean that disrespectfully, but like in bowling, I have to put up those flipper pads because it's going to go in the gutter every time. So they're kind of guides that kind of guide you up to what would be higher self, my word, your word would be, I think, super conscious.
Super
Right?
conscious, yeah.
And then that might be up to source or God or someone else too. But if we're all connected, in theory, that would be all one thing for me.
I actually had a question on that, which we'll get onto later, with the connectivity of us and how that works with manifestation.
Awesome.
So I had that in mind. What I really liked, like I said before, was the defense versus action. So I always tell people on the psychic development course or any other spiritual course that I'm doing to get as many spiritual tools on their tool belt that they can in order to be the most superpowered that they can be on a spiritual level. And you mentioned that in your book as well, this being in a defensive position, and the cutting of cords obviously being more of a defensive move than I don't know, what do you say, an active,
proactive maybe.
yeah, proactive, exactly. How do you think then that could change a course in manifestation, etc.? You know, how important is it for us to play a proactive role?
I think it's really important, because basically the whole impetus for my book was that I had so many people come into the stores, and a lot of them would be claiming, you know, I'm an empath. And it was always what I would hear would be, I can't do this. And it kind of almost, and I'm not making fun, because I'm an empath too, but you know, I can't go into crowds. I can't, everything, the negative energy bothers me. I can't do this. This bothers me. And I thought, and a lot of the books out there were claiming to empower us to manifest all these things in our life, and as empaths and as just people. But yet really every single, and I'm talking literally every one I read, I thought by the end of it, I don't feel empowered at all. I feel like I'm having to put up all these defenses so I can survive. And to manifest, then you're starting from this like position of having to climb out of all these protections, and really you're having to manifest your way out of all that before you manifest your way to what you want. And so it's like, yeah. And so if we're really talking about manifesting, which is kind of, you know, the law of, it draws in those laws you were talking about, the law of attraction, right? So there's action, and in the law of attraction, that word is in there. And so if we really want it, then I want to be proactive. I want to be like empowered, and not being like I'm having to worry about everybody all the time and worry about everything everybody's doing to me. But how can I draw in what's best, not only for myself, but for humankind? And
well, I say a similar thing as well on the psychic development course, because I often have people come to me who have grounded themselves so much, because every single book says ground. Before you do anything spiritual, ground yourself. And I've had people come to the course that are so grounded that they can't actually move from that. So I think that's a similar defense position, that we do root ourselves by following all this advice, this wonderful advice that is everywhere, that we end up putting too deep a roots or too much protection around ourselves, that we're focused on the things that actually in real life, if we were in a situation, we want to be able to handle ourselves. We don't want to have to be stood there and think, oh, I need to defend myself. No, we actually want to take steps to proactively change the situation. But it doesn't always apply then to the spiritual realms, because people don't treat the spiritual realms sometimes the same as, or with the same common sense, really. I know that sounds awful, but I don't mean it in an awful way. But the same thought processes aren't applied when it comes to the spiritual life. So I had that, actually, the protecting. And do you think then that with the cord cutting, the protection, the building these walls around us, that in turn stunts sorry, spiritual growth. Does it slow us down then on our path? Can we actually stop a manifestation happening if we're putting up our walls?
I think so. Now, I don't think, I will say, I think there are times when these protective mechanisms are necessary. There are times in our lives when we're just not as strong. We're not in a place where we can transmute energy. We're like the other day, I was really angry about something and I was not feeling well. And there was just no way I was going to transmute the energy of the situation or transform those energies. I just was not in a space to do that. So I needed protection, right? And really they needed protection from me, to be honest. Hopefully they had their protection. No, but seriously, I needed protection. So, but I think it depends on where we're at. So I don't ever want to say that those tools aren't good, and those are in my book. But eventually, yes, because if we're really going to step into a new paradigm and really evolve and really ascend, and those spiritual words, right? Ascend and become really enlightened, then, and I look at that and I'm looking around going, are people really enlightened? I mean, that's kind of another reason I wrote the book, because I was like, I'm not that enlightened. So how do I get there? And so all these protective things, if I'm putting up walls, building walls, and it's funny because I wrote it, I don't want to get political, but I wrote about the walls during, I live in the United States, when somebody was talking about a bunch of walls going up. Mm-hmm. I thought, when you put up walls, guess who's behind that wall with you?
Yeah.
The more you put up the walls, all of a sudden you're back there with you, and you realize, oh, wow, maybe I have a lot of work to do myself. And then again, I do think it can stunt that and keep you from manifesting what you want in your life, because you haven't managed your own energy yet.
So transmutation of energies, how would you, it's obviously a whole book, and we can't even closely cover everything that's in there. But you do talk about energies and us all being one, and the importance of. There was one part that mentions that energy doesn't change, or the amount of energy doesn't change. It transmutes into a different type of energy.
Right.
And sorry, I'm going back to my original point. So how do you see us able to transmute energies that's more than ourselves? The direction I'm going in is that we are wanting to manifest a better year next year. We are wanting 2021 to be absolutely fantastic, and therefore we want. There's a call coming in. I'm sorry.
That's 2021 calling.
Talking about
great.
So we want 2020 to stay behind. Do you think we can transmute energies of the year for ourselves to move forward?
Yes. I really do. I think that because transmutation, which is literally what you were saying, is the fact that the law of thermodynamics, or the law of conservation of energy, is that energy never goes away. It just changes form. So like when people are saging and everything, and if you sage it outside of your house, guess where it is? It's like sitting outside your house. Okay. Yeah. Really, we need to learn to change. Not that I'm against saging, I'm not, but we really need to change the form of that energy. So we need to learn to do that like in little steps, because it's not easy. It's magic. It's alchemy. And so can we do that for a whole year? Yeah. I think the best way to do that is bit by bit, is little bit by little bit, unless we really are already really great at transmutation, which I will say I have to really work on it. And for me, it's a day by day thing. So for me to set my intentions for 2021 for transmutation, to change the energy, absolutely we can. And think about if everybody did it together, if we all came together.
That was another question.
Yeah.
And
how
how
we think alike.
does that, if we're all connected, like we believe we are, and for me, the superconscious is the level at which we are all connected. How does our transmutation of energy have an effect on another's? So how would you transmuting the best 2021 then have an effect on my 2021 here in Germany?
Well, if we take if we presume, or let's take assume, if we assume that we are all one, which I do in my book, and I make the case for it. I go through a case step by step, like a case, like I would try a case, right? If we're all one, then it has to affect, right? It has to affect what I do has to affect you on some level. What you do has to affect me. Now, somebody could then argue and say, well, then why isn't everything exactly the same? Well, we do have, I guess, our individual, and that's where you, I think, have a lot to teach us on those different levels of the superconscious, and then, the levels you're going to teach about in your manifestation class. I think there's something to be said there about how those, maybe you want to jump in here, but I think that
absolutely
that would make a difference, because we are all one, but then we all have individual intentions we're setting. And and that's another reason, Toni, I'll say, like, I don't predict like lottery stuff, because it's scattered energy. Because even though we're all one, if we scatter the energy, then it's not going to have the same result as if we're all manifesting the exact same thing.
That's right. And what I actually teach is the 3 selves, and it links back to Ho'oponopono and Huna, and the 3 selves that we have: the superconscious, the subconscious, and the conscious. And that's exactly what I believe exactly the same as you, just using different terms, and that we as humans are driven by our subconscious and our conscious, which aren't connected to one another. Yeah. So we're connected at that superconscious level, but we operate on a daily basis on our subconscious and conscious if we're not striving or transmuting or trying to be at that superconscious level. So I believe too that we can all affect one another as long as we are operating at that superconscious level, your higher self level. So it's a similar, I think they're all the same. They're the same concepts really through time. Yeah. It's just a different way of it. And it's funny that we've both come to that kind of direction, because maybe 2 years at Reader's Studio, I wasn't in that place. And I remember that the energy, I mean, how many people were in that room? 200 and some, all in a room, all tarot readers, all psychically inclined in some way, all that energy all at once. And I think by day 2, I got a migraine. And it was a lot to deal with at once. Right. And it's interesting that since then, we've both gone into a way of moving that energy within us or within our superconscious. And it's a similar or the same direction, effectively.
Right.
Just slightly different terms,
because we're one. Right? But then we have our, it's all cool. It's really cool. And I think that what I'm really working on is the fact that I used to make a lot of excuses, and I still do sometimes, for the way I would think. and the way I would sometimes behave. I would make a lot of excuses for my energy, because those of us who also, and I won't speak for you, but I have a feeling you're like me on this, who are also psychic, for lack of a better word, that we feel energy so strongly. I don't know if you want to use that word, but I'm reclaiming that word over here. That we tend to know things ahead of time. We feel things so strongly. I would make a lot of excuses for that energy. And I found that so many people are, and I'm just tired of that. I'm tired of making excuses for my energy. I want to take charge of it, and I want to do better with what we can do in this world while we're here. Because, I mean, everybody says you come here for a purpose. I mean, that's something you hear. We come to Earth for an Earth. And I kind of wonder sometimes, I'm just going to throw this out here. Why did we pick Earth for such a training ground? Have you ever thought about that? I was like, why here? It's like, can I pick somewhere else? Maybe I did in another lifetime. I don't know. But we can make it so much better. And instead of just saying, I can't do anything about it, like I give up, and all of us, so many people just kind of griping about everything and falling into those patterns. Does that make any sense? Just that.
Yeah. I also think with me personally that I have gone through waves. So in my 20s, I was so developing spiritually, so heavily developing spiritually, that it actually felt like the world was open. And I had so much compassion for people, and so, that wanting to help in different ways. I did a lot of volunteer work at that time.
Me too. Yeah.
And then kids come along, and you get into that subconscious and the conscious mind, just doing the daily tasks and work and doing what we're supposed to do to get through the week. And I've always been spiritual. There's not been a year in my life that I haven't, but it's coming back again now, like a wave of force coming back again now. And I think there's a lot of people around the world at the minute that are feeling a similar thing, that I meditate daily. I don't know if you do, but I meditate when I go to bed at night, but I also meditate during the day, not sitting down and cross-legged or anything like that, but I bring myself consciously into subconscious as often as possible. And I honestly see online as well a lot of people flowing back into that again.
I agree with you.
And I think that's a collective transmuting of the energies.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think maybe that comes if we were to study when those waves come across the world, which people have. Maybe those times come when we've gone through something difficult, or we're going through something difficult. I don't know. Perhaps that happens.
Yeah. But this year actually was obviously collectively one of the hardest years in my lifetime. Mm-hmm. And I think that despite all of that, which one would think that we actually start putting up our barriers and saying, oh God, we can't do this anymore. We'll social distance and we'll spiritually distance as well. But it's almost, I had the opposite effect, that everybody's wanting that spiritual connection now, rather than maybe in the absence of physical.
Yeah, right. And that's, I think, that's a really good point. And I think that's why it was so interesting with the timing of my book. When I got a date, finally, it's January 8th that the book is coming out exactly. But I think it's so interesting when I was writing the book, because I was kind of like, really? Am I writing this book during this time? And then I was like, just go figure, and kind of went into pity mode about that. And then I realized, no, yeah, exactly. This is exactly when you're writing this book, because it makes total sense that everybody really is wanting connection, but they're realizing they're wanting connection on a different level than they've ever wanted connection. They're wanting real connection, really heartfelt, heart to heart connection. And really, even if it's through a screen like this, they're really wanting real connection with people.
I think it's interesting your, like you say, it happened this year. I remember when you said you were doing the final edits. That wasn't that long ago, actually. And, or it doesn't feel that long ago.
Yeah.
But that was smack bang in the worst time here. And I thought then, wow, that's a real tough time.
Yeah, it was. There were days I was just like, no, seriously, like, who else is writing a book right now? And I need to call them, because it's like, how the hell do you write a book in the middle of this, and who cares really, but then I realized, really, I'll use the word, I really felt it was divinely guided. And I don't mean that in ego. I really do. It's so out of ego, to be honest, because it has the word connection in it. And here we were really being told not, we had to social distance and you had to do all these things. And we may be back in that over here in the States right now. It's kind of feeling that way again. And it's yet we're so yearning for connection. It makes us know how much we really are yearning for connection, which before that, everybody was so busy doing their own thing and they didn't really want to connect. And then when you have that pull from you, you kind of realize how much you really need each other on a deeper level, I think.
And you spoke about the divine direction, and it's something I truly listen to and work with. When was the seed for the book? When did the moment hit?
It was probably I started looking back when I think the proposal was in 18 maybe. When did it really, really hit? Well, there's so much in there to answer it. It was cumulative, to be honest.
But did you have that feeling that you had to do it?
Probably it was after I turned in the proposal, to be honest, because I turned it in and I was still like, I'm not sure. And so I think, honestly, it happened right before all hell broke loose with COVID, which is interesting, at least over here. I think over here it happened a little bit later, maybe.
That's right. We were in February.
It was. It's a good question. I'm gonna think about it. No, you asked a really good question. But I will tell you, it was a process, because there were moments when I was, like I said, I was like, I kind of almost despondent about it, because I'd be writing going, oh, this is the last thing I want to be doing. But then it almost was so cathartic to me, because I'm writing through and making the case for everything that I sorted through a lot of things that I would hear. You hear all these little buzzwords.
It's so funny how alike we are, because when you answer, it's actually almost my next question, because I was going to ask you how the process of writing the book actually taught you about transmutation, or brought you along on your journey.
A lot. A lot. I think anytime you set out to write a book where we're actually teaching something in it, in a way, or you're exploring.
You are, absolutely,
yeah, and you're exploring a concept, because I do question everything, and when I teach, I tell people to question everything. I say, if I and I tell them to do that with every teacher, not to be,
No,
argumentative,
absolutely.
but
Question your teacher.
yeah, and question out also guides, spirit
Mhm.
guides. If any guide or teacher ever tells you only listen to me, you better run, because that's not a good thing. That's like
No.
a cult, right? So a cult guide or something. So, but don't just listen to that person. So all these things that people would just say, I'm going to answer your question, I promise, but all these things people would just say, they would just say, oh, we're all one, or everything's energy, or blah blah blah. They just say all this stuff, and I'm thinking, okay,
Buzzwords.
who all these little cliches that you hear, and I was like, okay, I'm going to explore those. Okay, now what was the question?
How much you have learned along the way.
No. I've learned to try to stay on my train of thought because I'm very ADD. No, I learned a lot because I questioned so many things, and then I would have to live it out.
Yeah.
I'd write about something, and then, for instance, the big one being transmutation, which is literally changing the form of energy. So I would say, if you get in an argument with somebody, that's one I can use the most, because when I get my feelings hurt kind of easily. Okay. Mm-hmm. So, and then I dig in because I want to be tough. Right. So I think I need to be tough. And so I would be tested in it kind of, and I don't want to say I would literally be tested, but I do think I was kind of like, well, if you're going to write about it, then you need to go through this. And so then let me just give some advice. If you're going to write about a subject, make sure you're ready to be tested in it. Because if you're going to say, hey, you need to learn how to transmute energy, or, empaths, especially traditional empaths, as I call them, there's these different levels of being an empath, and we should learn to eventually, not should, but I invite you to learn to transmute energy. Well, if you're writing about it, you kind of need to know how to do it. Absolutely. And so I had many opportunities. I had situations where somebody would hurt my feelings. I had situations where maybe I didn't feel well. I've had kidney stones during the writing of my book that I had to I literally envisioned, and they weren't this big, but I envisioned the kidney stone. They felt like it. I envisioned the kidney stone, and I tried to transmute the energy, because it's only energy. That's all it is, to transmute that energy. So that's how.
It's so interesting because I have gone again on a similar journey, and again the wording is slightly different, but teaching Ho'oponopono,
right?
I do the same thing. So I see we are taught in Ho'oponopono that the incoming energies, whether it be anger or whatever, that's information. You treat it as incoming information rather than a dagger or something like that. You treat it as a incoming information, and you take responsibility yourself for your energies in that moment in time, and you work through them. And when I was doing my Ho'oponopono course, putting it all together to teach other people, I was tested. My everything, though, not just patience, just everything that could have possibly tried to push me off kilter happened. My neighbor became very ill, and I ended up being very much involved in that. And I was constantly working through my Ho'oponopono so I could say, I'm here, this is my energy, I'm taking responsibility for my energy at this moment in time, so that the collective or the conscious, where we're all together, can also heal from that situation. So in a end effect, if you were in the same situation, you would heal from the same thing. So I forgot where we started too.
No, but you know what I think is so cool is that you're exactly right, and you've you performed healings on me, distance healings on me when I think I was in Denver or somewhere and I wasn't feeling well. And I was in Denver, well, I think. And using your, I can't say it, Ho'oponopono.
Ho'oponopono.
Yeah. But I know what it is. And it was amazing, and it worked. And it's the fact that I wasn't at that time able to what I would call transmute that energy, but yet you did that for me. And I think that's a beautiful thing, because here we are talking about the same thing using different language, and we're not arguing who's right about the wordings, which one's a better way of doing it and which one. And that's where I think the divide comes sometimes, is where we have all these beautiful ways of using energy work, and we can call it different things and explain it in different ways. But if we would all, back to the thing about manifesting, if we would all just do it, right?
Yeah.
And just do it, I do believe we could have a better next year, and that we could affect that.
The thing I found interesting in your book was that you'd come to a similar conclusion as what I had through the Ho'oponopono, through quantum physics and entanglement, that we can, like you say, have an effect on anything else, because there is the quantum physics realms of everything.
Yeah.
And during teaching the Ho'oponopono and the pendulum, I teach pendulum healing as well. And I actually wrote to a quantum physicist who is at CERN to try and get them to prove the vibrational healing powers using entanglement. And they just said they don't believe in that.
But I don't, okay.
But
interesting how they would just dismiss. That's an example of someone just, what I just said.
Well, what I think,
something that is exactly, you're saying exactly what entanglement is, though.
What I actually think is interesting is that quantum theoretical physics, that it is the science of theory. So they are trying to prove theories. I just think that our area of spirituality can actually be explained by the theory of everything when they actually get there. It's just, I thought if we could nudge them a little bit onto, looking at, I don't know, same as what's in your book.
Another person to talk to.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that right now. Don't give up. You're going to find the right one.
But I also tell people to break their brains as much as possible. So on my courses, I always say, listen to quantum physics podcasts. If podcast is something you like, look on YouTube. There's so much on there. Look at the Faraday lectures, even going back. And there's so much science that you can put behind spirituality as well. And if your brain is open to those suggestions, actually it's so healthy to break your brain. I break my brain as much as I possibly can, just to try and, like you say, with entanglement, and just to try and think how the theory of everything, how the realms could actually answer the question that in our niche, rather than sorry.
I love that.
On my rabbit hole.
I love to explore how you explore, and it's probably why we get along. And I want to say that I don't want people to think that the book is so dumbed down. It's
not at all.
But it is approachable. I would use the word.
Yeah.
It's approachable. And that was partly because of my great editors at Llewellyn. They had me be, number one, more approachable. And number two, they toned my tone down. So like when I said no tone. Yeah, when I said no book has ever talked about this, they were like, let's say that in a nicer way. But I'm like, like, well, none of us, but they had me be a little more, tone my tone and just make it a little more approachable. But I did want, just like you, I think you say break your brain, but I say, take it. And if there's something that is just like somebody tells you, go research it, go figure it out, and I'm trying to think of all the cliches that we hear. And I don't mean that negatively by saying cliches, but everything, not even the ones in my book, but that we hear in the spiritual realms that people just use all the time. People come into classes and they don't know what the heck that means. And people just say them like everybody just knows what that means. And then so why don't we just look at those and go, well, why is that true? And why have we been saying that for a really long time? And is that true for this? And I do think we're in a paradigm shift. Let's talk about paradigm. What is that? So I talk about, I have students question, what is paradigm shift, and why is that just a saying too, right? I think we should question everything.
I think that's also your background that comes in. And that's what I find refreshing is the need for substantiation, self-substantiation.
Yeah.
So the need for proof at our own self level. And I think that's super healthy in spirituality. Another person that does that I really like is Andrew McGregor. And he does go to lengths to look into everything. And I think in our niche, it's nice to have that need for self-substantiation and not just taking everybody's word for it. Because if I took everybody's word for it, I don't think I'd be where I was now. Spiritually, I mean.
Correct. Yeah, I wouldn't, for sure. And you know what? I wouldn't be where I am now. And what I mean by that is I wouldn't care.
Yeah.
What I mean by I wouldn't care is I'd be like, it wouldn't be mine. I wouldn't be owning it. I wouldn't be owning my belief in it. It would just be like, okay, I've signed up for another conditioned belief. That's a phrase too, but another thing that somebody's told me to believe, and they've just said, this is how it is. And I've gone, okay. And I've just been told this is what I'm supposed to do. And I've gone, okay. And just gone along with it. And to me, that's just another conditioned belief. So I'm not going to trade. I say often, I'm not going to trade one conditioned belief for another.
But it's also like going in a courtroom. You wouldn't just take one side over the other without substantiating it.
No, so, and if anything, Toni, the best way to be in court is to really take the other side and try to be on the other side. And so I was saying that to Roger the other day. I was like saying, literally, be devil's advocate as much as you can. And that's the way you really understand the other side. And so I do that all the time. Does that make sense? Just try to just believing everything I say. I want to look at your point of view. And if I look at somebody else's point of view, then I'm really going to understand. Well, to be honest, in a lawsuit, I'm going to really understand how to break down that point of view. I don't want to do that in spirituality, but you know what I mean. Guess that one a good example.
It was great.
No, I'm kidding.
That was a wonderful example.
Really.
I had another few. But it's funny, we've naturally just gone down the route anyway. So, transmutation. The thing I wanted to ask about manifestation was that you speak in the book about being a sponge and squeezing out or you suck up the energy that's around you. What can you do to transmute a manifestation? So use that available energy that's there, and transmute that available energy to you for a purpose of a manifestation. So if you're looking, there's people who ask for love, for example, or ask for obviously money, etc., but the best life. How do you take the energy that you have and transmute that into a positive manifestation? It's a big question, that one.
Okay, so I would first say it depends on, because we look at I was going to say, well, is it positive or negative? Well, I'm remembering that that's all relative, right?
Yeah.
The law of relativity, whether we believe it's positive or negative, right? Taken in a vacuum, we wouldn't even know if it was positive or negative, but we assign what's positive to me may be negative to you. But let's say, so do you want me to answer it? If I had something that happened that felt not so good to me, I could take
so
it.
For example, like we were talking about 2020, if you have somebody who has suffered grief in 2020 and they want to then go into 2021 and mutate that, mutate.
I love that word. That's good.
To change that grief into an energy that they can work with for a manifestation.
Okay, so grief is a tough one. So I just wanted to say, I don't mean this flippantly at all to anybody. There's all different kinds of grief, right? All different kinds of loss. So there's all kinds of loss that people have had. So I believe in this thing that I call, when you said the sponge, I believe all of us absorb energy, no matter how much we try to protect from it. We all absorb. People might not agree with that, but I do. I believe we're all absorbing because everything's energy. So if we've had something that has not felt so good, let's use loss of a job for our grief.
Yeah.
Okay? So we've lost a job and we're going into 2021. Then we're going to have to use that energy and to break it down. We're going to have to change that grief of feeling loss into gain, right? So how can we, and I get it, for me, it's, and on the layman's terms, it would be, how can I use that time to decide what might make me happier, what might make me, what I can use to, as opposed to just like, how can I look at for some other job or things like that? It would really be, because they know to do that, right? So it's really saying, how can I mold that energy literally outside of myself? I literally do visualizations with it. I would literally take it and say, okay, how can I mold that into what I want it to look like in 2021? And I'm huge on visualizations. They work. They really do work. And so
I use it. How
can I mold that into what I would want it to look like? Because I do believe, and this is going to sound not, that's why I wanted to say, I mean this lovingly. I do believe that stuff happens for a reason. That there's a reason to move into something different, maybe something that would make them happier. Maybe they were working too hard. Maybe they needed a pause. So I'm not trying to say it meant it should have happened to them. But that's how I think the transmutation can take place, is the visualizing. And also it's the cord, because you were corded, like connected to that other job. So then you start thinking about, what do I want to be corded to? Is it the money? Or is it the happiness? Is it both? Is it how I feel? Is it I need more time at home? And so you start visualizing that cording, because you are corded and connected to every kind of energy. I'm hoping that helps, because it's a big, that's what the whole book's about, but it's thinking about and visualizing and literally changing that energy into something else.
And that's what I do. I visualize. I love.
I mean, that's one way to
visualization.
Yeah, it's one way to do it. And I don't feel like I think they'd have to read the book to get the full flavor. because I give tools. I give tools of affirmations. I
There's
give
exercises.
yeah,
Yes.
to use. But do you think, what would you do? Is that what you think? Because I'm going to
I
make
do a similar thing whereby I clear myself. So the words again, but
I get you.
I use Ho'oponopono.
Mm-hmm.
So I make sure I'm operating at superconscious. I make sure my subconscious aren't kicking in with any triggers to say, oh my God, I'm grieving, or oh my God, this is the worst thing in the world. Then your conscious and everything all freaks out at the same time. So I'm transmuting my own energies, like you say, and then visualizing what I want that manifestation to be. And again, it's with the visualization, it's very much a creating almost an alternative universe out there that you are working towards. And whether we use the word corded or connected or any other of the terms out there, it's still that visualization has been created.
I also think for the manifestation part, since we're going to, again, so excited about the conference, that I think that it's so imperative to remember that we have to have gratitude. And it's so hard to have gratitude, that word. I mean, it's like, really? Are you kidding me? And 2020, and we've got to have gratitude. But I really, in my book, I talk in my meditations, I always say, before your feet hit the ground at night, think of one thing that you are grateful for to change energy. Think of one thing you're grateful for, and before you go to bed at night, and then before your feet hit the ground the next morning, remember that same thing. Just one thing you can be grateful for, even if it's the fact that I could draw breath, because some people can't right now. They're on ventilators, right? So if you could just be grateful for that. And then, so I always put that in every single meditation. And I wanted to say one more thing. When you were talking about that grounding,
yeah,
and everybody grounding, and when they're trying, I think when you're trying to manifest, that's another time that I ground between heaven and earth. So my manifestation or my meditations talk about, you can connect to the earth, but I always send energy back to Mother Earth, because I feel like if we're going to really recycle, we need to help her too. We need to stop taking our energy from her. But we also can think about where we think we might be from in the cosmos or whatever, or the universe, and we can kind of lasso to a star or something up there. Just visualize that, and we ground there. So you're grounded in the heavens. So you're actually grounded with, like, above in your transpersonal chakras. So you're grounded between heaven and earth. That's how
That's a really nice way of looking at it, because traditionally we only ground in the floor, and I think that's a nice then balance.
Yeah, because otherwise, if when you ground just in the floor, you know what I think of? I think of those big old balloons, or those big things that go. So I think you're not really. So you're grounded, but you're like going around.
Exactly that.
So that's the other thing I would do for changing grief, is I would find some sort of gratitude too. And I think we've had some grief this year. I don't want to compare my grief to others. But
it's not always easy.
Yeah.
But if we can find one thing, like you say, just to say thankful for, I'm thankful or grateful that I have my bed even sometimes.
And I'm grateful that we have been able to talk through this year. We've talked a lot, and just grateful even for one person maybe that you found through this time, one person that you've connected with, maybe through silly old Facebook or whatever that everybody made fun of before, or through, one person that you maybe you don't have 50 friends, but you have that one person that you connect. And then when you do have that gratitude, that's when that manifestation comes. And then it gives you a little energy to have the action that you also need for manifestation, because without the action, if you're just sitting on your couch, it's a little bit difficult and not doing anything. It's a little bit difficult to have the law of attraction, in my opinion.
Completely agree.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Michelle is speaking at the World Divination Association Manifestation Conference I think you're on the 5th of December. What is your title?
Yeah, so I'm looking at it. Not trying to remember. This one is called 12 Days for 12 Months of Magical Manifestation. It's really going to be, the key is you're going to learn that you're going to do a calendar with different modalities. It's going to be really cool, but it's manifest what you want instead of forecasting what you will get.
Like it.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yay. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be awesome. You guys sign up.
Yeah, do it now. So we are going to say bye-bye. You can stay on, Michelle, and we'll say our goodbyes afterwards. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for having us here, and we'll see you on the next one.